while that genuine sort of diligence and exertion of effort may be there, still there is some sort of a, let's say, not a fault, but worry, or some kind of, what would we say, a word? Not exactly negativity, but a fault sometimes that we could mention, and that is slight inability still in integrating formal practice and daily life. And so there's a sense of not being able to bridge the gap together. And so in that way, we could come to, again, a way of saying, Buddhism doesn't have to be just a formal meditation, just a formal practice or a religion. In the same way, we often talk about today when people ask questions, what is Buddhism to you? Yeah, Buddhism, if it is seen only as a religion, then that would again bring the difficulty, the inability to really bridge the gap. So you could be a very good Buddhist and not be a good human being, for example. In the East, that is what is the problem. When I say monks and nuns, as a Buddhist, as someone who is devoted to the practice, the reading of the sutras and the recitations and the meditations, that is complete. There's a lot of devotion to it. But somehow not being able to see that aspect of our formal training and the doctrine in integrating into one's own being, which transforms the person into a genuine human being, into a good human being. And so with that, then the value and the actual essence of the teachings are completely lost. So if we look in the Western tool today, where there is a lot of exertion of effort in the practices, you do just as many different forms of methods of practices, you study a lot, you are someone who goes Fridays to the talks, Saturdays and Sundays, despite the fact that you've had a tiring week, you still go and do your meditation and practices and attend retreats and so forth. Nevertheless, that small discrepancy that is there, the gap that is there between the formal meditation and how much of the essence of that formal meditation you allow to permeate in your life, if that gap is there, then that always is worrisome. So again, coming back to the sacred view would be is beginning with the understanding of the value and the profoundness of the teachings. When you really realize how profound and how valuable it is only then that one can really enable the essence to permeate throughout one's own being. If we take, let's say, a monk or a nun from the East again today, if you ask them how valuable is Dharma to you, they'll probably say it's very, very valuable, very, very precious. But on the other hand, it's not as precious that it would enable the person to give up self-grasping, or the pleasures of material life, or the pursuit of fame, or whatever it may be. Likewise, here too in the East, in the West, if you look, the best way is to ask oneself the question: is Dharma valuable? Does Dharma sound true to you? Is it something that you understand to be very profound that needs to be cultivated, and therefore you exert the effort? And as I said, you exert tremendous effort. But on the other hand, how true or how valuable is it? Is it as valuable that it would supersede your hope and fear? It will supersede your distractions and the habitual tendencies, the aggression, the desire, the ignorance, the jealousy, the competitiveness, the ego grasping, the arrogance. And so in the very beginning, it's being able to understand profoundness. How profound is the Dharma? And so the teachings always begin with hearing, contemplating, meditating. The three prajnas that are essential, three wisdom qualities that are essential. Wisdom that derives or that is derived through hearing the teachings. Then whatever you hear, you take it into contemplation, reflection, examination. In your mind, you analyze to really see whether it is true or not, whether it makes sense or not, whether it is valuable or not. After that, whatever makes sense, whatever you think is necessary, whatever it is that seems to be beneficial to you, then you meditate on that. Meditate means you do it often enough that you become familiar and that it becomes something that is constant in your awareness, in your mindfulness. Such a simple thing as meditation, if we see what is meditation would be. Anger is something that is useless, and therefore why not practice compassion and patience? If you take that, meditating on that is learning about it. If you really trust that to be true, meditating is constantly reminding yourself so often that you become so familiar with it that rather than the anger preceding the tolerance or the message to be tolerant precedes the expression of the anger. And that's what is called meditation, or a good meditator. so being able to then meditate, through this then arises a sense of, oh yes, Dharma is precious, or the meditation is beneficial. It is something that is valuable, and therefore, with that understanding of its preciousness and value, mind becomes aware of integrating that principle or the fundamental essences into one's own daily life. And so in the very beginning of one's entrance or journey of the Buddha Dharma, sacred view is simple, keeping it very simple. Keep it very simple in terms of just human life and how the qualities that one hears, that one learns, that one meditates upon can be permeated into one's own daily life. And so, as simple as that could, I think, bring a lot of changes, would be very beneficial to many people without actually taking on all the formal commitments of meditation. So there are many people who are very apprehensive about joining centers or belonging to a certain lineage or school, and that's quite odd. Being a Buddhist in general, and as it should be, should only mean someone who's a good human being. Our teachers would often say, what's the difference? When we went to receive teachings from them, the one thing they would, this one is my father would often say, what's the difference between you and a pig? Or what's the difference between you and a dog? And so, with all good respect to all the pigs and all the dogs, some people would be very offended. But on the other hand, I've said this example before and people thought that was very disrespectful of the pigs. But still, nevertheless, that's also very true. You have to sit down. In the beginning, it's very sort of, what is the teacher asking? But when you look carefully into it, and then you would say, sleep, eat, and then all the sort of mundane activities that you would do, doesn't make you a human being, any mark of being a person with more qualities. And so if you look into one's own life, then it's a busy life. We all do many different kinds of things. Some of us manufacture many things. We come up with incredible ideas of how to make the society better and more quick and speedier and more fast and more beneficial and so forth. We have all these skills, let's say. But on the other hand, besides a lot of talk, a lot of sleeping, a lot of eating, a lot of busy activities, really doesn't account to being any different than what a dog would do or what a pig would do. They're as busy too. And they have their own schedule, their own routine. It's a way of, for example, the home that I am in now has a turtle, a cat, and a dog. And the owner is not here, but wonderful animals that seem to get by without anyone. They have their own schedules. The turtle, when the lights come on, eats the lettuce. We've been watching that the whole day today. It's very wonderful to see that. At about 10 o'clock or so, the lights seem to come on. The turtle wakes up, goes and eats the lettuce, and does whatever it has to do, and then cleans itself, and then the lights go off, it goes back to sleep. There's that schedule that is there. The cat has its own schedule, and then the dog has its own schedule, and the owner not being there, all the guests, unknown guests, but they seem to do remarkably well. And so, likewise, ourselves too. We think we are very intelligent, very capable people who look deliberate conscientious beings and so forth. But on the other hand, it is scheduled eating, scheduled gossip, scheduled lying, everything is set in that way. And so today when we look back, I just think about our teachers questioning and saying, if life should end today, if I die today, what has it accounted for? What has it done that is in any way a life that is supposed to be better than animals, that is supposed to be better than pigs and dogs? And so in that way, as a meditator, the first is understanding the preciousness of human being. And as a human being, the qualities that we are endowed with, and how much of it are we able to use? Learning to be able to recognize oneself as a human being with this valuable quality of thinking, of logic, of examination, of reflection, of being able to have a choice in the freedom to choose what is right, and the power to not do the things that are not right, that are not helpful for oneself and for the others. Using that is the only vision or the only teaching that is there within the Buddha.